Across the finance office.
7, 17, 7, 17. There we go. There we go.
What? How come you weren't at MTA last night, Mr. Chairman? Or were you there?
Oh,
I'm not on the transfer, I don't know.
Oh, I just thought you might be there. It was quite an event,
I
actually.
wasn't invited.
Really? 1,400 people.
That's good. So I figured we were represented. Thank you. Yeah.
Good
I don't
time.
have to go to all the meetings.
Just asked.
I'm at my peak of my meetings right now.
You've peaked, your meeting peaked.
I don't think I want to do another one.
Another one of what?
Meetings.
Meeting.
I was talking about canceling the Friday meetings.
You mean, you don't mean these meetings, you mean all the other meetings too?
Everything.
You've had enough.
I'm
meeting
there.
down.
Officially retired.
I'm there. So 20 meetings last month.
Let me
Well,
work
hell,
up a
that's my
chair.
average.
It's less than minimum wage.
$7.50.
This is the Grand Terrace County budget meeting. We're going to be looking at the IT department first, but if we could do Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We can have roll call, please.
Lathrop,
Yes.
Max Bauer,
Yes.
Wheelock,
Excuse.
Yep.
Inman,
Here.
Rennie,
Here.
Lemko.
Here. Next is public comment. I don't see anybody unless you would like to say something. No, we don't have to worry about running or going through the public comment. So next is Don Sheehan. You got a presentation on IT, or the IT department.
I do. And I also got Don Sheehan, Director of IT, and also Randy Filkins, also handles the telecommunications for our department. So Randy's got a few slides that he's going to jump in, that we are actually broken out as two separate departments between IT and telecommunications.
So make sure you speak into the microphone, please.
All right, I'll try to get a little closer here.
Whatever.
So I'm going to go through and hopefully, yeah, you gave me 45 minutes. I'm hoping that's way too long. But just a little bit of the IT purpose. We do business analysis, project development, systems implementation, network administration, operations, supporting of personal computers, the telecommunications, and education, so training of users. So there are a lot of parts of what we do out there, and that's the different people in my office, and I'll go through a little bit of that. We provide the support and tools to improve the productivity of the individuals in the organization, implement new technologies, design and implement applications to increase efficiency, reduce redundancy, and hopefully provide some direction for our technology where we're going to go in the future. We are an internal service fund, so we provide services. So those are our customers, our other departments, other governmental units, and we are on a cost reimbursed basis. So what our expenditures are, we should be recouping in revenues. And our goal is not to make a profit, but it's really just to do that break even. And I've got quite a spreadsheet that I use each year to go through, and we've had cost accounts look at that in the past and help us come up with, how our rate structure would work. So we promote the efficient use of services by having agencies pay that full cost associated with providing the services. And we also allocate the cost of all the administrative services so we can get, we recoup from federal, state, local, other non-general fund programs. They share in that cost. All the hardware and software is centrally purchased through IT. So sometimes when you look at the IT budget, it really does, to me, look large. But we're buying all of the hardware that's going on the desktops for all of the departments. We're buying their software. A lot of times we're even purchasing a police package or something may run directly through the IT. So even though some of those numbers appear very large, a lot of those are a pass-through cost that ends up back at the department. And it has worked out well for us, where in the past I know some agencies are not set up where they centralize the purchasing. I mean, we really help keep everybody on a standard and make sure that we can support it. Otherwise, you get people purchasing whatever they feel would work best for them.
Don, he doesn't think your mic is plugged in. Do you want to make sure that's, so he's not hearing you very well.
And it's this bit right here.
We'll see how good IT really is.
Usually there's a plug goes in the side of that part down on the bottom.
You're right, there is one. Because, yeah, this is just the power, EGA. So
You
we
need a
should-
plug to go in the side of that bottom.
What's this right here? This one?
That's-
That actually goes right to the desktop.
You got a little megaphone?
Gary, yeah, grab that one. I think we actually know where the other end plugs into.
To the
Well, you're-
side.
Your only option is
Right,
to
and
sit
then
in
where
that
does it
corner
go on the
chair.
floor?
Did he say that that was not the whole county gets charged?
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that, but
Yeah, here you go.
Yeah, we'll put it here.
Send
To
one to-
err is human, to really screw things up is a computer. If you really want to follow the computer up, put the boss behind the computer.
There you go. There you go.
I'll try it.
All right.
There you go, yay, thank you.
Do I need to start over?
No,
No, we heard you, Don.
he was
All right.
hearing you very faintly, but
Oh, sorry, I didn't think to check that to make sure it was working. Make sure I'm talking into it then. But yeah, we found out that it works very well for IT to standardize the equipment. It makes it a lot easier for us to support the equipment that's out there. So we do support, I was going through my counts, and actually it's 900-plus personal computers. And some of those are only in one form or another because we have Antrim and Leelanau counties, they're circuit district probate courts, but they actually have staffing out there that provides the support at the desktop, but yet they still come back to us for our host system where the court system is located. We have the document imaging system here. So we still have for certain fees that we do charge, but they're not like full-blown ones where we do full support. We have a single AS400 system. We have 2 Linux servers that are used by the health department's application, and we have 36-plus Windows servers. So our customers, county, city, the other 2 counties along with our county, and we also do hosting of email for East Bay Township. They asked if we could throw that in with our Google Apps. And I've listed the departments here, but you're pretty much going to find that every department is listed. So, at one point or another, as we grew, we added on. So, but for both county and the city, I think you're going to find almost 100% coverage that we support all of them. And then some of the other agencies that I had the other counties. We also have the Department of Corrections, who's in the courthouse. We supply their phones for them. They also use our network wiring. They come back and they have a connection to the state of Michigan, so that part's separate, but we're still handling the support. And they still access our local court system. They can access our police system for inquiry purposes. We have a couple other small ones, Literacy Council, that's tied in with the probate volunteers. EPA has an office downstairs. It was easier for them just to link into our network. We put them on the guest portion, and it gives them internet access. So we do once in a while where we get somebody else in the building, also providing some service. And I just want to go through a few of the communication connections. So we have our fiber loop that connects our main facilities together, and our government campus here, which includes the Gov Center, Historic Courthouse, Hall of Justice, the jail, the prosecutor. And just on a side there, I ask the prosecutor, whether at some point if they outgrew their building and could they move off site. And I'm really going to push you to keep them on one of our primary sites because right now they have gigabit speeds in our network. They move across town. How do I provide the same level of service? They can share the phone system and all of those. And otherwise, we have to figure out how we're going to give them the same level of service when they're in another facility. If they're on the fiber loop, okay, they get off of that, makes it very difficult. So we have the DPW shop, and that's under a Charter cable. And the VPN is a virtual private connection that it gives them an encrypted access back into our network over the public Charter network. So we have the DPW shop, we have 2 health clinics, we have the Sheriff's Department, their Marine ORV garage.
Excuse me a minute.
I messed up the works.
Technical difficulties.
Okay, I'm still here.
We lost everybody else.
Okay. Some of the other ones, Antrim County provides their own connection to come through Charter Cable. Leelanau County, in conjunction, that was through actually 911, was able to get a grant to get a 1 gigabit wireless connection out there. And they also have a 10 meg fiber that was there in the past, so they have a couple dual connections to Leelanau. City DPS, they had their own fiber connection. Light and Power, we connect to them through fiber. City fire stations 2 and 3 are both through Charter Cable through that encrypted connection, and then their fire station 1 connects in with our Front Street on our fiber loop. So all 3 of their stations then are all connected through that method. State of Michigan recently upgraded that from a copper connection to a fiber connection. And internet access, we have a 30 meg fiber that goes out to Charter. So if there's a problem with any of these connections, we're the first call. They're going to come to us and say, hey, we can't communicate what's going on. So we're in there supporting all those connections. Also want to review a few of the joint county-city applications. So finance, the accounting system is shared with the city. And actually, the treasurer's office runs another small accounting system for brownfield development and I think economic development, just in their separate data sets. GIS, we share the servers with the city. So we have a single server there that our applications are running on. Personnel and payroll. Again, that was another, and I know you'd asked about having that outsourced. Currently, that's an application that IT created, and the city shares that same application. They also use it for one of their retirement payrolls. So even if the county outsources, I'm not sure where that leaves IT. We're still there supporting a payroll system. And right now, when we do make modifications, we split that cost so that we charge half of it to the county, half gets charged to the city for that application. The police system, that was through New World Systems, so it's vendor-based, but it's all hosted on county servers and then it's county supported. The document imaging system, recently the city clerk's office jumped on and is using that. And we are also making sure that they pay their fair share, so they are putting in theirs for that. And then just the entire shared infrastructure. I mean, ever since this building was built, the city has been with us. And so we share the same servers, network switches, phone systems, firewall, email, web filter, antivirus, anti-spam, intrusion prevention, internet service. It won't be real easy to split us apart if that ever gets decided. I went through a few of our revenues and some of our counts. So to say, where does our income come from? So for the county, we have the $1,184,450 was our 2013 revenue. The city paid $136,640, and then those other agencies that are also connected to our network, $34,000. And those are kind of broken down into different areas. So we have programmer services, and so I broke out the fee for that. And then those purchases, maintenance, Gmail, and that's where you can see under the county, there's $502,000. That was all passed back to departments. Those were their personal computer purchases, software maintenance, those types of things. So those got billed back. And then we have our computer charges, and that's where we take basically all of our administrative time. I take mine, we have our server person, and our technicians. And so that gets rolled all into there. And so what we do, our allocation, we charge for a computer a support fee. And we also have some others, and I'll show those. So that's how we make sure that we get that 100% reimbursement, though. It's attached primarily to a computer. If it's on your desk, here's where you're going to get billed to have that computer there. And that's what, at the bottom there, actually we have, now I said we have 33 tablets also. Along with computers, we're not charging the same fee for those. And if you look at some of the numbers, and I can make sure everybody gets a copy of the presentation, but you'll find that sometimes, like for those other ones, you know, they don't pay near as much of a percentage for their computers, but we're also not providing the same level of service. And that's true for many of the city. A lot of theirs are sitting out in smaller departments not on our network. They might be at the marina, they might be at the city cemetery, they might be over at the sewer water plant. So we don't provide their internet connection for them. We don't do those other types. The city pays for those when they're off-site. And so our expenditures for 2013 were $1,344,975. So actually we made more, a little bit more in revenue than our expenditures.
We do all have a copy of this.
Okay, all right. And here are the categories when we're doing a personal computer. We break this down into different categories of IT support, so that's more the personnel side. We have network access, which those are all the switches, the internet. We put all those fees into there. Actually, the internet is broken separate, but the network one, our wiring closets, all of those types that are going. AS400 is separate. And we also have PC servers, so that's our whole virtual server environment if they're using that service. So we can pick from any of these fees and say, yes, this personal computer is attached and they're using these services. So if they're using all of the services, it's $116 a month to have that computer basically sitting at their desk. And that does not include the cost of the computer. So annually, it's about $1,400. And it's been quite a few years that I've heard, though, that, you know, the estimate is that it's typically $2,000 to support a desktop computer out there. So I think we're very well in line with our $1,400 that we are charging users to have that computer on their desk. For our staffing, I listed it all out here, but there's myself. We have 5.5 IT technicians, and we have 2.3 programmer analysts. 1 server admin, and we have a .25 part-time electronics technician. That person repairs printers for us, also comes in and does sound equipment sometimes, fixes microphones, does other miscellaneous. Former full-time employee of the county. And so I did the numbers there, and each technician then really averages 160 computers each for how many they support out there. And I didn't include those 56 other ones that are in the other counties and things because we don't provide that full level of support. So, you know, I do think that, you know, that's a large number of people for each one of those persons to support there. And we have one of our technicians is housed at the Sheriff Police Department, so they're dedicated there. We have 1 person who's at the Health Department. And so our staffing history, we've had 2 positions added since 2000. And there was actually a little fluctuation in there because our person at the health department, they were full-time charged to IT, and we wanted to spread them out and have them do some more other buildings. And they said, no, we really want them here to support our full administration of our environment. So they actually pay half his wages. The other half comes out of IT. So that gave me a half person really to fill in over here. And I ended up splitting that half person. That was when Randy added a half person. That was back in 2006. So it doesn't really show in here because it was kind of a wash, but there was a little bit of change in how that worked there. But in 2012, we brought the IT technician to support document imaging. And in 2013, brought on a server administrator. And that's where a lot of our applications are moving from the AS400 more into that Windows Server environment, and really needed to get that support there. And it kind of is also reflected, one of our programmer analysts who used to be AS400 is now our document imaging administrator. So we changed responsibilities, but we didn't change staffing. So they just kind of shifted their whole set of responsibility. And also then one of our programmer analysts went down to from a 1 full-time FTE to a .3. So they are still supporting some of those AS400 applications, some other things there. So with that, I'll let Randy.
Do you want to answer questions for your IT department at this point before we get to Randy's, or do you want to do it at the end?
I'm going to jump back in, and I've got a few more slides
Okay,
too. So
very good.
I'm actually not done.
Hi, my name is Randy Filkins. I'm the telecom coordinator for the county. As you said, there's 1.5 people in my division. I have a half-time tech that helps with the cabling and things that we do. Let's see. The first one here, I want to go through the phone system a little bit so you understand what it is. Phone system is actually three different pieces of equipment that sit at different sites around the county. There's the main piece that sits here at the Gov Center. We have one at Health Services, and then we have another one at the Law Enforcement Center. They all act as one big system. There's reliability built into the system in that the three critical sites that we have equipment at, each one of them has the ability to process calls for their own site. If this site goes down, the health department can take over for the whole site, for the whole system. If the law enforcement can't see back to here, it can produce its own calls, and it has trunks to do so. So in all, that system is able to stay up, virtually for any reason it can stay up because of the way it's built. We have 518 internal telephones. Those are IP and standard. We have 3 sites that are IP phones that don't have equipment, but they still have phones that run off the system here. We have 3 servers and a voicemail server, 74 external phones. Those are Centrix phones for sites, or for agencies that are off-site, that aren't at the main sites. We also service 206 cell phones. That's part of that. Let's see. We support a total of 589 users across the county, the city, and other agencies. And the other agencies are those outside ones that are on Centrix. We don't do full support for them. We just supply them with a line, a phone number. And we also order those lines and disconnect when they need to move them. We do that too. The phones that the people have on their desktops are centrally purchased by me, but they are ultimately paid for and billed through the actual departments that order them. I went through a revenue and accounts just like him. The revenues for 2013, the total revenues are $289,492 that we billed for and got back from each one of those entities. If you look down the list, the county has 87% of that, and we get that back from them, but then we have like 12% that we get back from the city. So we are a break-even account, just like the IT department. Our total phone count is 589. 17 of those are, let's see, I guess I didn't break them down into the Centrix lines. There's 74 Centrix lines that are in there included. Again, that total of 589 does not count for the cell phones. The cell phones are above that. That's 206 cell phones. And we order and service those. If people have problems with them, we go in and troubleshoot the problem. And we're the interperson between AT&T and the user. Our total budget expenditures for 2013 were $287,564. This year's budget is $285,151. The basic cost it boils down to $35.20 to have a phone on your desk at the county. And that includes the voicemail with that as part of that price. Other things that are included in that price are, we go through, and a lot of the changes that we're going through in the county where we're reducing staff, it causes problems in that the staff that was there to answer phones and do things for the departments has to be rebuilt, has to be remade because they don't have as many people to do the job. And so we go in and set up custom call setups for those departments, for both county and city. We have auto attendants that we build. We have hunt groups that take incoming calls and put them on hold automatically and wait for the operator or the person in the office to be ready, and then it releases it to them automatically. We've built 27 call vectors just to handle the difference in the way they process stuff. We have a voicemail system that's included in that price. We have features like conference calls. We have a conference bridge that we built for users, and this is part of that $35. The calling rates that we have set up, we have trunks that are set up for unlimited local calling. So both the city and the county and anybody on the system can take advantage of that. It's inside of the $35. There are unlimited local calls. So that's a big thing with a lot of the departments. We negotiate a 2 cents per minute rate for long distance calls that actually has to be billed back. That's not part of the 35. We do all of the cabling for the 13 buildings that make up the county. Anytime anybody needs a drop or moves a phone to somewhere where there isn't any drops present, that's part of my job and the halftime tech is to go out and pull cable for those users, and that's included in this $35. We do monthly billing. We have an accounting system for departmental billing, and we have to bill back for the long distance portion of that, and that's what that system's for. We also lately just put in an enhanced 911 system that sends all of the location information on emergency calls down to the building, the floor, and the quadrant of that floor that the person is located at. So other than that, we do everything related to the phone system. Everything related to phones in general is the responsibility of my side. That's it.
So another area that you had requested information, known or potential concerns. So one of mine is the removal of Windows XP support by Microsoft. That's happening in April of this year. And you know, the fear out there is that people have just been sitting on viruses and those types of things, and they're going to let them out after Microsoft stops their support. And the decision was made earlier this year. I mean, it was about $82,000. Equipment that was purchased in 2009 is still running Windows XP. So I believe we have about 80 to 90 computers, even after we do our replacement this year, that will still be running on Windows XP. And we really won't know if there is a high risk to that till we get there. But it's definitely a concern, and especially if we have those, and we're trying to get them in our more critical areas such as the Sheriff's Department, but I'm not even sure this year when we replace their mobile, I think a few of their mobile computers will still be running XP, even after we do the next 16 that we've got in this year's budget. So it is a concern there, and that's basically the funding hasn't been adequate to be able to replace computers on a 5-year basis. So I mean, some of these computers are 6, 7 years old that are sitting out there. Demand for the document imaging applications has not been met. And partly that, last year we lost our document imaging administrator. It took us about 4 months to fill that position. And you know, when we did go through that, and part of the reason it took us that long, you know, the pay basically was not adequate to get somebody in here with experience in that field. We've got Grayson on board now, and he has a lot of development experience, but he's learning the on-base product. And we took advantage there too. Genesee County arranged for some training courses directly at their site. And we saved quite a bit on training to be able to get Grayson and Carrie, our imaging technician, to go to those. But yeah, and few web-based applications have been implemented due to lack of resources. And it's really, part of it I haven't asked that much, I guess, to get some additional. I mean, when we've had a hard time just covering the computers and keeping our hardware up there. So we would definitely need to put more into that area. And whether we look outside for that kind of development or whether we do it inside, part of that too is, changing out software. And actually, I think I have that a little bit further in here. But, and that's also true at long-range planning. We have not done a lot. We've got some strategic plan, we've got some goals, we have some things we want to do, but we really haven't gone out there because the question is, is it worth all the planning if there's no money to get there? So I think that's where, and we don't have a steering committee, and maybe that's something that we should have and really kind of start looking at things and saying, ultimately, what's really important and how do we get there? Can we get commitment behind that to get somewhere? For staffing, it's still a concern. The last 2 technicians we hired took pay cuts, but we were able to convince them of our better benefits at that time. But now, the benefit reductions, I'm concerned. I think if somebody leaves, I think I'm going to have a hard time filling one of those spots. And I'm not so sure that they're not going to look to move on, and especially if, the economy starts to pick up in the area and more positions open up. And also, the position responsibilities have changed in IT, but the positions have not been reviewed. And that's where I said, we had one programmer who moved to a programmer analyst position, or the document imaging. I had another person shifting around into others. And, it really, I'd like to plead, it is time to come in and look at positions. I think a lot of departments have had shifting in roles within their staffing, and yet it hasn't really been reviewed. Outsourcing options was a question there. And so some of the areas of outsourcing, and we've basically done that. We used to do a much more internal custom software development. And now we have been shifting more to where we're purchasing software, and we've done that for the treasurer and DPW just in the last year or so here. And with those applications, then they have those hooks to the internet where they'll allow for credit card payments, they'll allow for people to check their online utility bill, get the status that they're looking for. And there are other applications, building code is a good example. There's some really good applications out there for them, but you also have to pay for those, and then you get the annual maintenance. And that's one of the things that's hurting anymore. A lot of the software maintenance that we're purchasing, they're at 18 to 20% of your purchase price is the annual maintenance cost. So you're almost repurchasing their product every 5 years, and that's really kind of an industry trend. So when we look at outsourcing some of the applications versus covering them in-house if we have the ability, sure, we have the personnel, but a lot of times the personnel in my office, they're supporting 5 applications, 6 applications. They're not just supporting one. Mm-hmm. And some of those costs out there under software, both on the New World Police system and our document imaging system, we're paying over $100,000 a year in annual maintenance for those products. So even though that's what the one person who was our programmer analyst, she used to support a custom jail application, so she's the one that went down to that 0.3. But when we did that whole shift, we also bumped up our maintenance costs. So a lot of times the personnel cost gets replaced by something else. We worked closely with Circuit Court over the last few years, and in the last year they implemented their criminal case e-filing, and they worked with ImageSoft to have that done. But in a lot of those cases, even when we're contracting for a service, we still had to be able to pull court data out of our system to link into the imaging system, so we have these direct linkages back and forth between the systems. So even when we say we're going to outsource something, it usually does not remove us completely from the picture. We do use outsourced services for our more sophisticated network configuration. We can replace some of the smaller pieces of equipment, but when you do the firewall, some of the higher end routing, then we contract out for that service. We also do the same thing when we get into our virtual server environment upgrade. When Randy did his last phone system upgrade, he worked with a vendor on that. So when we really need the expertise, we bring in people there. And I guess I'm under the feeling right now that I think our staff is very efficient, and you're probably not surprised. I would recommend that we outsource. But I think we use those services when we need the expertise, and we're already providing outsourced services ourselves to the city, to these other counties. And so I'm not sure, our applications are getting more sophisticated. People have had a computer on their desk for a long time. But now what's happening is they're getting multiple applications. And the sheriff deputies are a great one. You know, when they first started, they had lien access. They could inquire into our local system and look up history. Well, now they're doing field reporting. They're doing electronic tickets. They're looking at doing daily activities. They're looking at doing electronic accident reporting. So every one of those gets back-end support from IT when those get there. So even though you still say, well, you know, they had a computer for 5 years, well, they're doing a lot more with it today than they were doing before. And we also have the other side, too, where people are getting multiple devices. So they've got the phone, they've got the computer. Next thing, they're going to have the tablet. And, you know, you can't always replace one with the other. And so, you know, we end up with people with 1 to 3 devices that we're supporting. So last, I had just a suggestion, and to me, I think it would be a feasible plan. You know, if somehow we had a business analyst, whether it's consultant, whether it's internal, they could work with departments, you know, find out where those redundant processes are. How can they be fixed? But I also see that it can only work if we get the department buy-in, and that the sole goal is not that we're there just to eliminate staff. I mean, we need to be there to say, where can we increase the efficiencies, and hopefully, you know, if it does reduce staffing, can we help make sure that person can move somewhere else in the county or something? Make it something people want to do. So. So I had that. I had a few numbers on budget, but I don't know if you want to go through any of the detailed numbers. I mean, there was one in there when, if you looked at our personnel costs and they went up, basically that cost is the defined benefit allocation, you know, if you compare it to last year. That's where that cost went up. The other numbers are pretty much in line with where they were before. We're in line to replace all of our Microsoft Office products this year. So a lot of people are still running Microsoft Office 2003. So we want to get them up to where they're running 10 or 13 on their computers. So that's, yeah, we're at $80,000, but, you know, we've been running that for 10 years, so we got our money's worth out of the product, but it's time to move. We've got $84,000 there allocated for the mobile Toughbooks, but we're still evaluating. We're hoping to be able to switch to some Dell, actually, and save about $2,000 per computer there. So we're still in the evaluation. We are in line to replace 164 computers this year, and that's at a cost of $150,000. And then we have some other weather printers, software, other things that are included with the equipment that I purchased. So that $338,500, that total figure there is going to get passed right back to departments. So it's in my budget, but I'm going to spend it, and then when they get it, I charge them back for it. And it was $82,000 to replace all of our 2009 computers, and that is what got removed from the budget. Here are some of our maintenance figures. So that's where you can see that New World Police, $105,000. Our on-base document imaging, $106,650. Our electronic ticketing. I do the GIS software. Our Google Apps for email licensing. And so the net effect, I guess, all those costs are going to get passed directly back. The $105,000 is for IT equipment, IT software, our servers, those types of things. And it still gets passed back. It gets built into that PC support rate. And so, I mean, everything gets passed back, but some of them are just a direct pass-through, I guess, as I would say. If there was an area where to make cuts, you know, early in the year I talked to Dave, and he said, hey, you know, I asked about getting money in for training and those types of things. And so I put money in here, and some of it I obviously would want to leave, but, you know, if there was an area where you said, hey, can you save some money, I can pull some out of here. I also wanted our part-time electronics technician. I had $9,000 in the budget for him. He comes in only when we need him now for printers and those types, and it has worked out great. Last year I checked, he made $2,800. So, but yet he comes in Monday mornings, checks, he checks his email, and there are a lot of times, the courts just recently, they had a couple microphones weren't working, came in, hey, I'm in town with my wife, I'll stop over, got him fixed for him. So I really don't recommend changing that arrangement either, because I just think I'm only paying for when he comes in, and his rate froze when he retired from the county, which was, I don't know how many years ago now, it's probably been 8-10 years. So he hasn't got a pay increase in all that time for doing that for us. So just down at the bottom are some of the other things that are in my capital list, and there is $120,000 there where if we were to upgrade our complete fiber network from 1 gig to 10 gig. But we're still looking at that. We want to do network analysis. We want to make sure that it's not just server issues or something. So that money's, we asked to have it allocated, but we're definitely going to do more analysis before we would do it. And these types of costs, when we do capital purchases, they end up going through a depreciation and they get allocated over 5 years. So it helps to at least keep our rates at a more standard amount rather than seeing those just really go up with a huge expenditure in a single year.
I just have one question.
Chris?
Don, you're looking at getting rid of Windows XP, which we in all likelihood should do
Right.
at some point in time. But you're talking to someone who still runs Office 2003 on her computer at home. So do you see any advantage of moving away from Microsoft entirely and going to Apple products?
No. The Apple is not as much situated for a business environment.
Okay.
You're really not going to see that too much. I mean, you still see that, I think, more in design and advertising firms, and that's still, there's a niche market. But I think you're going to find the majority of organizations. And typically, you're not in there at a lower price either.
No, I know you're not at a lower price.
Right.
There's, per computer, it's about $1,000 difference.
Right. And yeah, and we're still evaluating now too. Windows 8 is coming out on the tablets. And a nice advantage of that is it will run all of our applications we currently run unchanged. Where if you get to the iPad, now you usually are typically running some other app that has been customized for that
Yeah.
and may not provide the same level of functionality.
Thank you.
Okay. Dan?
I have a couple questions.
Yes.
You said IT was designed so that we would, when you bill other departments, you break even. Are you breaking even?
Yes.
Okay. And then I want to understand, all the computers that are in the county, they're not billed to your department. Like, let's say soil erosion, they have their own computers, that gets billed to them?
When I buy it, so
Yeah.
it's in my line item, I'll put $800 in here to buy a new computer with monitor, and then I turn around, and so it's kind of like a double. You see it in mine, then you also see it within his department because he will be charged that $800.
Okay, so then the numbers are kind of artificially inflated in a sense in terms of the cost of your department?
For my department, yes. And that's why I say you'd have to really look at our department and go through and say, well, what are all of the items that are not
And
simply a
subtract out the-
pass-through
Yeah.
Yeah.
to get to the real numbers, yes.
Do you provide IT for the city?
Yes.
Okay. And are we charging them enough?
We charge them the same rate we charge everybody else. So I say, yes, if we don't think it's fair to what we're charging county departments, then we wouldn't be charging a fair rate to the city. And I guess the question is, should we make a profit by doing some of it or not?
Well, I hear that rumor that we're doing them a big favor, and maybe we should charge them more. Is that true?
We could go back and look at it. There may be some areas where we could charge them more. I look at it ultimately from a taxpayer. I think they're getting the most efficient service. Is it the county who's paying a little bit more than the city? I don't know.
Okay.
I guess we'd have to look at it.
All right. So there's not really a source of revenue there in all fairness.
We do know that the city did I think Plant Moran did a study for them analyzing your,
Yeah, they didn't do a real in-depth study, but yes, they had them go through
well, the
and kind of-
results weren't in-depth, but they were,
Right.
the summary, the executive summary said, you're getting a good deal to the city.
Okay.
And
They didn't tell
are.
us how good of a deal they were getting, but they they were getting a very good deal.
Yeah, they're getting a real good deal.
Well, I was just wondering if there might be a source of income for us there. I don't know.
Other questions? I have two. One is, have you looked at cloud computing and whether or not it would save us any money so we wouldn't have to use the AS400? And so we have to continue to upgrade that on a regular basis, I know.
Yeah, well, our upgrades have definitely spaced out on that, and actually we've eliminated, at one time we had 3 AS400s and we're down
Right.
to 1. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're gradually, but like something like the AS400 is very custom application based, and in order for you to move that to the cloud, you would have to purchase separate applications to replace the existing ones that are running.
So it probably wouldn't make us any sense.
Not right there. And, we're getting there, but, cloud all relies on that internet connection. So, we have a 30 meg internet connection. So you have to look at upgrading internet in order to use cloud services. And we are going there. I mean, our Gmail is basically a cloud application, and the day we ended up having internet down, we had no email. And, you know, so people are sitting out, so there are risks, and there you can create multiple connections to the internet, which actually I'm looking at after we had our one day when we were down. But, you know, I know the fire department, city fire at least, they went to a cloud-based application for what they are doing there. We will definitely look as we move along. A lot of people are still concerned about the security of the application and also the portability. You know, what if I decide I'm not going to be with that vendor anymore and I want to move it? You know, do you have the ability to move that application to another site?
The other question is in a phone system, I just was able to see a phone system by ShoreTel that really almost eliminates telephones. So anybody gets a phone, it will go to their personal device, which is kind of an interesting thing, and I don't know what the possibility of us going into it, but because we have multiple locations, Brunswick Corporation just went to this system and are saving thousands, millions of dollars by going to this phone system and having their thing. So you might want to look at ShoreTel. The school system just put it in, public schools through TCAPS, and it does quite a bit. I was very impressed by going through the phones through their phone system and how they can use that for alerts, how they can use it for multiple things, and they have 4 different backups on that. One is internet, one is cable, one is satellite, and one is internet based. So it's kind of an interesting phone system. So you may just want to Google or just go into ShoreTel.
We have been looking at some of them because I know NMC also went to one, and was that ShoreTel or? Yeah. But some of those, we also have to upgrade some of our infrastructure then because everything has to be an IP phone and it has to have power to the phone at the desk. A lot of our network switches still don't supply power because we've only had computers in there. So there are back-end infrastructure changes that have to be made to get there also. But you're right, it's going there, and we're definitely looking at more of those capabilities.
Mm-hmm. It was just kind of interesting to see a different type of phone system out there that you may not have to have phones at your desk. You know, you're just going to have your personal device or your laptop, and it's going to go right to there, and that's going to eliminate all those cabling, and it's just going to go right to your internet and be able to take care of it, voice over internet. Dan?
I think you said we had 589 phones in the county, is that correct? Plus we have 250 cell phones. We only have 500 employees, why do we have so many phones?
Well, most of those people have a desk phone and a cell phone.
Right.
Yeah, but that would mean that every employee would have a desk phone, and every employee would have a cell phone. For most, it seems like a lot of phones.
It is. That's what it takes to run a company. Yeah.
Well, you know,
But that's why I'm taking this other
let's
phone
look at the
system.
guy that drives the county plowing truck. Does he have that? Do all those guys have a desk phone?
No, they would have a cell phone.
I don't know. It seems like a lot of phones.
Yeah, we'd have to go through and see, did you count those voice mailboxes like for the deputies? Is that in your phone count? Okay. So we'd still have to go through and look. There's a lot of times there are phones in conference rooms. They're out in other places also that not only are they sitting at a person's desk, they also have phones in other locations. But Randy could probably give you a detailed count by department of, where all of the desk phones are and all of the cell phones.
Well, from an amateur's point of view, it sounds like a lot of phones.
I know. It sounds like a lot of computers, too.
Yeah, it does.
We're very fortunate that we have Don doing our IT and Randy doing our phone systems. Not every company or county has that resource to be able to make sure that we're up and running. When we do have a problem, they take care of it.
Well, I always hear the best about you guys.
Yeah.
All right.
So
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Mr. Chuck, I guess you're up.
In our office, there's only 4 people.
Yeah.
And I think there's 7 phones in there.
Good afternoon. Chuck Lurchin, Director of Veterans Affairs. I don't have any presentations for you. I did try and keep this relatively simple. Ask Corey.
Sure. +1. +1.
What I tried to do is I just took your template of the answer or the questions that you'd like some answers for, and just gave you, 1 or 2, a few sentences, synopsis on that of where the department's at. And of course, this is geared towards budgeting issues. So if you want to take a second and look through that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We're a relatively simple department. We don't have a large budget. We don't have a large staff. We were able, over the last few years, when the call came out, we charge absolutely nothing for any of our services. So we're a true general fund service provider. However, we were able to go out and sell our services to our neighbor counties under contractual fee structure, which did produce some revenue for you. We're currently in year 2 of 3-year contracts with Leelanau and Benzie County, and that's going to bring just around $210,000 into you for us going out and doing that work for you. So.
Chuck, since you're on television, you might want to review this because some people may want to hear what you're saying.
Oh, sure. We can
Just
certainly
not-
do that.
The commissioners can read this, but those that are viewing this, I think they would want to know
All
some of
right.
the answers.
That's fine. It's a very short and sweet document, just about 3 pages. On page 1, I just took our current year 2014 budget and just did a real short analysis of it. Just about 25%, a little less than that, about 22% of the budget is paid out in state-mandated claims that we have to pay out to veterans and their families in the area, and then some accounting costs that the finance people understand. I really don't too much. The lion's share of the annual budget, of course, is personnel costs. We have 5 full-time employees that do the work for the 3-county area right there. Then we have some uncontrolled operational costs, such as our IT costs, stuff that as a department head I don't plug into the budget. It's plugged in for me, whatever those costs will be. Leaving me a grand total of not very much money of the stuff that I have the control over, which is simply the commodities, postage, copy machine use, things of that nature. This year, your revenue from the 2 contracts with Leelanau and Benzie County will bring in just a little over $71,000 to you. Who are the customers? Military veterans, their surviving spouses, and their families. And then we also serve other government entities, other government departments, agencies and businesses throughout the community. If they have a veterans issue, if it's another social service agency, we're typically the first ones they call, all the way down to the court system. We're involved in the Veterans Court here with Judge Haley over in the district, so we'll participate in many other things. Our main customer, of course, is the veteran and their family. There's just under 12,000 veterans that live, that we know of, in that 3-county area. And then just some statistics on how many people we saw in one of the 3 offices last year. 5,300, about 5,300 claims of various types were filed in behalf of those residents through the federal government. Just under 500 to the state or county for various benefits. Why are these services important? Probably the best question that you had in your little memo of questions that you wanted to have answered. The VA as a large federal agency is very bureaucratic and very difficult to navigate through. The one unique aspect of the VA agency is you can't hire anybody to help you at the onset of you approaching the agency. It's prohibited by law to do that. You can't go, if you're filing a Social Security or a bankruptcy or any type of administrative law claim within the government system, you can go out and hire some help. Whether that be an attorney, many attorneys specialize in those areas of law. The VA doesn't allow that until you get higher up within their system. Then you can. So help on the outside or in the private sector is pretty much non-existent for the veteran or their family who wants to access their benefits. So there's many reasons that are listed in there why it's an important service. Not the least of which is, the VA expended, excuse me, in those 3-county area, just under $39 million last year. Most of that is a check to a mailbox or to a resident or a direct deposit nowadays for all of that. And then, of course, those healthcare services are very important, especially with healthcare reform and everything that's going on there. In our three-county area, 2,373 residents receive their total healthcare services at the VA clinic here in Traverse City. When those residents are able to access their monetary, their education, or their health care benefits through the VA, they don't have to access them anywhere else within the system. So, and especially at the state level with Medicaid, the county health department, if they're eligible for, want to, and can get into the VA system, now we don't have to provide them, duplicate those services in the other services that we provide locally. So there's quite a number of good reasons why the services are important. Changes in state legislation, the next category there, there's been a lot of veterans legislation that's come down the pike in the last few years. Some of it's been really good, some of it not so good, and that's going to continue. We're going to continue to see that type of legislation. It seems like almost every week there's something else that's coming down through the state, and all of it is going to affect the county in some way. This year they did umpteen different free licenses through construction code offices, qualifications for police officers, EMTs, all of that, licensing and everything else. Essentially what the state's doing is they're waiving any fees or costs associated with doing business for certain veterans. And that's what's been going on for several years. This year we saw property tax exemptions. And I don't know, we've probably done well over a couple hundred of those. Wow. Just in Grand Traverse County since they did that. So that legislation is going to continue. It's going to continue to affect at the county level. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I don't see any major demographic changes. Historically, throughout the country, veterans represent anywhere from 12 to 15% of your overall adult population. That's not going to change. The services will change. Right now we're dealing with 5 separate wartime periods and quite a large peacetime contingent of veterans. So they age. Our World War II guys are approaching their 90s on average right now. Our biggest workload right now you would think would be Iraq or Afghanistan. It's actually Vietnam. All the Vietnam guys, and there's a lot of them, they're reaching retirement age. They're turning a new chapter in their life. They have those issues to deal with. They may have not ever wanted to access any of their VA benefits before, but now that they're retired, they want to get into the healthcare system, or they want to file a claim for one thing or another. So we're seeing everybody from 99 years old down to 19 years old on a daily basis, and everything in between. So demographically, with those generational changes, with the exception of those generational changes, there's not going to be any other huge demographic changes. So potential revenue increases, we were asked to provide you with that. We don't charge fees for anything that we do. The model of providing contract services, I know that the state of Michigan would like to go with that as far as veteran services. They have a brand new Veterans Affairs agency that's only been online since last March. They've already released placing veteran services provision into their regions of prosperity setup, if anybody's familiar with that. So they want to regionalize it as much as they can. So the only way we're generating any revenue right now is through provision of services to those who want to purchase them from us, and that could be looked at expanding that. That comes with a cost. If we took on another county right now, we'd have to put another staff member on. So it's
But it's self-funding.
Absolutely. So the big question is, how would you implement a general fund budget reduction, and what impact would that reduction have on your services? The only way, if it were a substantial, general fund across the board budget reduction, would be in the area of employees. That's all I have to give you anymore. So over the last 5-7 years, we've either held stagnant commodities that I have control over, your operational, day-to-day operational things. So that question was actually, while being the most important question for you, was the easiest to answer. We just don't have anything to give you right now. So, and finally, the final question was, can the service be discontinued? Is it mandated? The great majority of the things that we do are mandated by the state of Michigan. We'd have to have doors open doing all that stuff anyways. The only thing really that we're doing right now that isn't mandated is contracting our services out to other counties. So.
Good, thank you. Any questions? Larry?
Well, I sit on the Veterans Affairs Board, and I can attest that they are being strained by the volume of veterans coming in. The waiting list is now less than 30 days, but has always been consistently higher than 30 days. We did beef them up in FTE last year?
Year and a half ago.
Year and a half ago. To get that number under a 30-day wait. And then we got involved with the partnership with the 2 other adjacent counties, which I thought was a good move on our part in terms of, cause they're going to drive into us anyways, because the other 2 counties really didn't have anybody like Chuck that was that proficient into the system. I can attest that with my relationship with my father and all his veteran issues, if I didn't have someone with Chuck's expertise locally here, there's absolutely no way you can deal with somebody on an 800 number someplace else and get the job done. Chuck has all the forms. They have a coordinated effort where he's allowed to get online and submit information, and he can control the information flow between his office and the client, and it's a much smoother process. And if there are conflicts or questions, they can be easily resolved by Chuck intervening and making a call to somebody he already knows, picks up the phone number, and knows the right person to call to straighten it out. And so we're really fortunate to have, number one, a Veterans Affairs department within the county, but 2, the staff and Chuck's knowledge. He's been past president of the State Association for Veteran Affairs Directors, and they've looked to him for his leadership in this thing, and he's changed some things in Lansing with regard to rating the Veterans Fund, which they no longer can do. And I think if there's anything that we can do that we can feel really good about our jobs here as county commissioners, is that we support our veterans when they come back home in any way possible. And they have a lot of volunteer help, people that drive people down to clinics, and it's just amazing the stories that we hear at our meetings about the types of things that they're doing with such thin levels of staff help and thin levels of volunteers every day to make a difference in veterans' lives. I mean, you got to be passionate about this part of what we do in county government when those veterans come back from a foreign war, especially the stuff that we're involved with right now. So I just can't see that we can go to Chuck because I believe he's already at a minimum level of staffing, and I think we need to be there when our veterans are there. And a 30-day wait is reasonable, but I can tell you the backlog, and Chuck can add to this. The backlog in Washington, D.C., or at these regional centers around the United States is horrible. It's up to 2 years before you can get an answer. And if you got a Chuck Lurchin sitting in Grand Traverse County that knows the network and knows the people and can somehow maneuver around that process and get it done quicker, boy, we look like heroes, and we're really doing an advantage, a real great advantage to our veterans about having someone here locally they can talk to and visit with and find out what their benefits are and how to get around some of the issues of the complexity of the whole bureaucracy of veterans benefits. So the only question I had, that's my speech, but the only question I have for you is, I don't know if we ever got any verification on the issue of the legislation that went through Lansing or is going through Lansing that if a veteran wants to have relief from their property tax, do they have to be disabled during their time serving their country in order to qualify for that tax waiver? Or can they serve their country and then become disabled later and still qualify?
The statute that just passed back in November, which we've been dealing with for the last few months, specifically requires that their disability be total, it be permanent, the veteran be rated as being unemployable based upon those disabilities, and they have to be directly related and recognized, and by that from the VA as service-connected or related to their military service. So
And who makes that determination?
the VA.
The VA.
They have to have a rating from the VA.
All right.
Mr. Thomas?
Just for the information for people who might not know, not everybody that was in the service automatically gets a bunch of benefits, right? If they're in at the wrong time, like post-Korean and pre-Vietnamese.
Right.
There's different packages of
Yeah.
benefits. Anytime the country's at war, the government tends to be relatively generous with benefits,
Yeah.
especially when we have an all-volunteer military. But every veteran has some form of benefit
Yeah.
available to them.
But if you were in a certain time when they, like after the Korean War, we had a little period before the Vietnamese War started, where, yeah, you can still get buried and stuff like that, but
Not the
There-
wartime benefit package. We call that
No.
the wartime benefit package. If
Well,
you're
I-
in during wartime, you don't have to be in combat. You don't have to even leave the country. But it takes 13 support personnel to put one poor guy in a foxhole. So all 14 of those people get the same benefit package. So.
I just wanted to know that it wasn't automatic that you get all these bennies.
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, they're quite restrictive as to what you can and can't get. So.
Dan?
What is for a while they were talking about getting a big new veterans clinic here. What's the status of that?
Well, we do have a clinic here in
I
Traverse
know,
City.
yeah.
In previous to you, the Board of Commissioners here, I think Herb was on the board back then, this board was instrumental in attracting the VA to open that clinic here in Traverse City in 2000. They've expanded tremendously since then. In fiscal year 11 and 12, the VA budgeted $7 million to expand that operation. They still haven't done anything as far as moving goes. So we're at the end of our patience and waiting for them to actually exact the move. It's been kind of a roller coaster. They've done 2 market surveys in Traverse City. I just met with the director of the VA Medical Center, who has jurisdiction over Traverse City's clinic, in September, along with Congressman Benishek's office, saying, what's the holdup? It's been 2.5 years. Let's get going on this. They did 2 market surveys and determined that there was no existing space in Traverse City to accommodate their new clinic. So it had to go back to Washington, and they're proposing a build to suit. The VA will not own property. They don't want to. They own too much of it. So they're now in the process of getting approvals for someone to build it for the VA in exchange for a 15 or 20-year lease. So that whole process could be another 2 years.
Wow.
Before that does it. And we want that here. We want the extra employees. We want the space. We're supposed to get a cardiologist. We're supposed to get a podiatrist, and anything that'll cut down on these trips down to Ann Arbor and Detroit for routine health care services. So we're not very pleased with the way the VA has handled the Traverse City Clinic expansion, especially since they were budgeted for it 2.5 years ago. They haven't done anything with it. Personally, I find it hard to believe there's no existing space. They need about 24,000 feet, retrofitted for medical clinic use, JACO standards. I just can't believe nothing exists in Traverse City. We have Copper Ridge, we have all kinds of places, but
Okay, I have a couple of questions for you. One is, could the county be the ones that build the suit? We have a building committee, and we have some property up on Lafreniere, so that would be one of the things we may want to look at. I'm sorry, Dean, just throw another thing on top of you here.
No, that's, Dave does all that work.
Yeah,
so
well.
I'm fine with that. That's right.
It
But I mean,
makes sense.
and
That
then-
offer's been on the table before. It makes sense. We can build cheaper. It's property that's already off the tax rolls. There's a whole list of good reasons for that. We can do it quicker than that. And whether or not they'd be interested in that, I'm sure when the bid packets go out, you know, these guys that make that decision, but I'm sure if they wanted to, the county could bid on that.
Do you need another resolution to move them along? If you do,
It's coming. I'm going to do a tri-county or three-county resolution.
I'm sure this board would be more than happy to support that.
Yeah,
So,
I'm meeting again with the Congressman's office on February 24th. and
Okay. The other question I have is about volunteers in your office, to whether or not you can support some of the staff with volunteers. You know, I know that volunteers have done it in other counties for many years and, you know, have done a fairly good job. Not the great job, but a fairly good job. But they also know their buddies, know what their needs are, and so whether or not we could ever use volunteers in our three offices.
We do to an extent right now. We take students that are attending college, either at the University Center or at the NMC, using their GI Bill. We can employ them through a VA work-study program. We don't pay them, but the VA does. So right now, we have 2 of those students. So it's a form of volunteerism. It's good for them. They get a little bit of extra money while they're going to school, and they provide an important function for us as far as putting files away and covering the phones if we're not there or whatever. But to expand that, I don't have the space. I don't have any place to put anybody.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for that, so we are
Okay.
kind of meeting that right now by
I'm
using.
just reading the book, The Greatest Generation by Tom Brokaw,
Yeah.
and I have not had a chance to read that before. But I tell you what, if you haven't read it, I'd encourage everyone to read how they are so committed to patriotism, to the service to their country, and how proud they were to build a service. And then they went back and started their own business, went to work and took care of themselves. And we've lost some of that, and which is too bad. So, you know, I would encourage people to read that and maybe, you know, get more patriotic and figure out how we can do more for our country. It's a great thing, and I just want to say to all the veterans that may be listening to this, that if you're not just a veteran, if you've served for the armed services in the United States, you may be eligible for benefits. Get a hold of the Veterans Administration and find out if you have benefits coming. And anybody that knows somebody that served in our community that served in the United States, get a hold of them, let them know that there may be benefits out there, and get them, because we're not doing the job that we should be doing in providing services for our veterans. Now I'm off my soapbox. Any other questions?
I just want to throw out, for the 2 commissioners that weren't here in 2012, the chronology here was, they were backed up. They had about a 30-day waiting period chronically. The Board of Commissioners added a half-time Veterans Affairs officer in 2012 that solved that problem, and then he took on the Benzie County, which wasn't a huge leap for him because a lot of those guys were showing up at his doorstep anyway, but this was an opportunity for us to get a revenue
Paid for it.
associated with it, and they were willing to do it and looking to do it. So that's kind of, we added some staff, but we also added this contract with Benzie County that pretty much paid for that staff member, or half-time staff member. And
So do they come here, or do you go to them?
Both. They provide us an office. We go out there every Monday. We send an officer out there, and they can come here Monday through Friday during normal business hours. It was pretty much the same as because we've been doing Leelanau County for about 16 years now, but most of them prefer to come here. They're coming here to the clinic to see their doctor. They're coming to Myers, you know, so they get their choice, so they can come to either one of the offices.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for what you're doing for veterans. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Have
you.
a good weekend.
Okay, Bonnie? The county clerk.
Who's already been ahead of the curve.
Good afternoon.
And by the way, thank you for helping us with the technology.
Get buried.
We do it all.
Yeah. Ooh, did I set you up?
Good afternoon,
Thanks,
everybody. Bonnie Shealy, the Grand Traverse County Clerk. I passed out a little snapshot of my office. I don't have a PowerPoint for you, but it kind of puts everything in a nutshell. As you know, we're the main record keeper of the county. We keep all the vital records, the court records, the contracts, the board minutes. We are the record keeper. We service approximately 75 to 100 walk-in customers every day. Used to be more, but we're doing e-filing now, so we have reduced some of the walk-in. Our computers have exploded with work filed electronically, but we're still one of the busiest counters I think you'll find in this building. I noticed Bob Cooney was talking about the wanting to get that e-filing. If you ever can find a grant or any kind of money, I encourage you to try to get him on board, the probate court, and the juvenile division of family division, because the e-filing is wonderful, and it is a cost savings. It does create a cost savings. As you can see by the list I sent out to you, we have a large number of duties. They're mandated. Only a couple of them, 3 of them, are revenue-generating ones that we have added. Passport processing is a great service to the public, and it's a great revenue source. Taking pictures, which I just added last year, is booming. January alone, we only did it half a year last year, we started in July. This January, we already took 150 pictures.
Wow.
Because we're taking so many, I think that what I projected for my revenue for 2014 is probably kind of low, because I didn't know how it was going to go. I think it's going to do well. And the more people that know about it, the better it is. And it is a great service. I looked at my fees. Dave asked me to kind of look at what some of the fees I'm allowed to, or you're allowed to set, not me. And some of them are just mandated. The court ones we can't touch. But I checked with counties of similar size, and we were low, and especially for the volume that we do. So we had a fee increase. I don't think it's unreasonable for the public. We're still a lot cheaper than the state is. My staff, currently I'm still in 3 offices. My big plan is to go into 2, and it's working. Next week, we are going to start moving them, even though I don't have all the workstations. Facilities has been trying their best to work as fast as they can at the health department, but so I'm a little bit on a waiting, but we're going to move them because I am short-staffed. I didn't fill a position, and we're getting a little stressed with trying to staff the 2 offices, so we're going to move them together, and hopefully, I know that will be a cost savings just by not filling the position. And I think we'll be much more efficient, much better for the public. They will have one place to go instead of 2 different offices trying to figure out where to go. So I think it's going to be pretty good. Who are our customers? Everyone. We have external and internal customers. Anyone who needs a vital record, starts a business, needs a copy of a document on file, files a court case against somebody, is the defendant in a court case. Anybody who participates in the election process. Elections is one of my big duties. If you're a candidate or a voter, everybody's our customer. We're required to clerk the circuit court and family court trials. We can have up to 3 trials a day, so I do need bodies. I can take 3 people right out of my staff just to clerk a trial. And we have to go to board meetings. So I do need a certain number of bodies, absolutely do. We work closely with the circuit court and the family court judges They have a lot of say in my court staff and how they want things handled in the courtrooms and such. So I have to work really closely with them. There's a sheet in there about stats. Because we're one of the largest counties in Northwest Michigan, we have a wonderful hospital here, so everybody comes here to have a baby. They come from Antrim and Mason and Wexford, and so I file almost 2,000 birth certificates a year.
Wow.
But that also causes a revenue source because they have to purchase certified copies of those birth certificates. We have a wonderful hospital for people at the end of their days, and so I file a lot of death certificates too, over 1,300 a year. So, I'm sorry?
I just said,
Oh, concealed pistol licenses, you'll see we do a lot of those. Everybody's hiding it. A lot of businesses and a lot of marriage licenses. Everything is connected when you look at the statistics from our office. If the sheriff goes out and arrests somebody, then the prosecutor has to charge somebody, then a case is started and it goes to district court or circuit court. So the bigger the county gets, the more our offices all get busy. I mean, it's all kind of connected. My court offices collected almost $1 million. But we don't get to keep any of that. It goes to the courts and to other governmental agencies. We get to keep a very small percentage of it. But we do an awful lot of work for the courts. Because we're so active in both the court and vital records, I do expect an increase in my revenues by maybe around 20% next year.
wow.
Part of that is the change in fees and adding some revenue sources. And we're just getting that much busier. We are very busy. Like I said, our photo service has been booming, and it's fun to take pictures. I'm getting better. My staff is even better. Certified copy fees last year, we collected, just in vital records, $114,000. And and that was when the fee was $10 for the first copy and $4 for each additional. Our fees now are $15 for the first copy and $5 for each additional. So I do expect a revenue increase. But like I said, I don't think it's hurting the public at all, because if you look at Leelanau County, they might file 4 birth certificates a year. Everybody comes here, and the state fees are $34 for the first copy and $16 for each additional copy. So I think we're still good, and I'm in line with other counties of my size and activity. Expenses, well, I did that whole project of merging my offices together, which is going to work, and didn't replace that position. Decreased my office supply budget by 25%. I'm assuming I'm going to have some savings, some cost savings in this merger. I wanted to just mention imaging and microfilming. You know, you've looked at that, probably that line item. I don't get a lot, and it makes a small dent, I'm telling you, a small dent to image and microfilm. But I have 4 storage areas full of files. I take up approximately 1,500 square feet just with files. The regular filing shelves are there, but I also have 4 large power files that hold 14 to 16 rows. I would need another 400 to 500 square feet if I didn't have those. We've imaged and microfilmed everything we can with the money we have. But I have approximately 80% of my paper files are still not imaged. If we were to have a water leak similar to the one that just happened in the Hall of Justice in one of my places, that would be really detrimental. I know it costs a lot of money. I've been trying to look for grants, but I really encourage you to try to think about. It makes it a lot easier for my judges too if the paper file is turned into an image file, because they're doing everything on their bench now electronically. So we want to have these files electronic. I have 3 budgets, my main one, and then I have the elections budget. I don't have a lot of control over the elections budget. We have to budget as if we're going to have 4 elections in a year. So I put in there what I pay, what we budgeted in 2012. We don't always use all the money. In 2013, I probably could have given back more, except we had 4 elections. The schools pay for their own, so NMC had to cover, all of that cost, but they're not cheap. I bid out for ballot printing. I bid out for the supplies. I try to get the best price I can. We try to keep it low. I have to train all the precinct workers except for the larger jurisdictions like Garfield and the city. So there's hundreds of people I have to train when election comes up every 2 years. My other budget is jury board. This budget, if you look on the line items, one of my employees, part of their costs, personnel costs, is in the jury board budget. And the reason is because we do all the work. Jury board we used to pay them to come in and process all these questionnaires. A few years ago, we determined it was cheaper to have the county clerk staff take over all those duties, and so 5,300 questionnaires come into us, and we process them, and the jury board looks them over, gives us the okay. I can't really control the postage because we have to keep sending them out because they don't return them. Today, I had to have 2 people show caused. This is from my last year's. That never return their questionnaire. It is really a lot. It's very work intensive to try to get people to return their questionnaires. I wish everybody just do it. So I guess that's it. You can look over, all the duties, some of the stats. Do you have any questions?
Questions? Bonnie, just a question for you. The money that you have saved that you're not spending, can you reallocate that to put into the document imaging? Is that something that she could do?
Dean would be able to answer that. I just always give it back.
Well, I don't want to jump, Dave can answer that too. We do have that position that has not been filled. It's budgeted in the clerk's budget. I know Bonnie's always asking for, not always, we try to help, and Bonnie has done a very good job of managing her budget, and I know when she runs out of space, she'll microfilm to free up space. That's how tight space is. But to answer your question, if the board would approve that reallocation of funds, and actually that's something that Dave can do, if that's what Bonnie would choose to do, and yes, that can be done.
If I might add, we can't do that just yet because we're not so sure that position can be eliminated yet. The judges have expressed that they want a position to remain in the old courthouse, the historic courthouse, and if that's a requirement and the judges can require that, we'll either have to find another source of funding for that position, or she's going to have to put that person back on staff.
But if we could tell the judges that the money you're going to save for not filling that position is going to do your document imaging,
I think they'd be excited about it.
that could be a huge benefit for everybody.
Yeah, it could. I think Bonnie right now is going to...
Try my best to work with them.
She's going to work with them right now. She planned on keeping that position in there for a couple of months.
We're doing our best.
We're going to see how that works out.
And they would be excited about document imaging. Judge Rogers sent me an email and wanted me to check out a program. I can't remember exactly what it was. But he's very, very pro electronic filing, electronic imaging. He really would love to see me get all my files back scanned. I even last summer I had an intern, and he was going to court and learning a lot of things, and he was back scanning some of our files, but it just takes forever.
Well, we have used the document imaging people that come in and build it and contracted and saved huge amount of money by doing that. And if we could take and transfer some of that money from that savings and hire that service to come in and be able to do that, to get those on there, that makes a huge amount of sense for me. Dan?
This move that you're going to make, and you're cutting a person down, how much did you say you're going to save doing that?
The position was just over 50,000 with cost, their salary and benefits, so.
And then maybe you already said, how much do you think it's going to cost you to buy the stuff you need to do this imaging?
Oh, I have no idea.
Well, you can buy it in increments. They they look at it and they kind of measure, for so many cubic feet of files.
Right, I had,
Do you know how many
Then they charge you,
documents
and it's,
have?
you might buy
Thousands and
$10,000 worth,
thousands.
or $15,000 worth, or $20,000.
Was it a $100,000 project?
it seemed like I could,
No.
I don't
and
know.
I don't know the cubic foot, but we managed to microfilm a few rows for $10,000. I mean, it's just a dent. There's so much, and I have thousands and thousands of files. I mean, they're everywhere. They're in the attic of the old courthouse. There's 2 rooms in the basement of the courthouse. There's a room over in the Hall of Justice. And we've been taking over everybody's space. We were supposed to share that.
Dean?
Well, two comments. When we implemented document imaging for the front of the court, there were over 1 million documents, and we did contract to have those
Is that
documents.
19,000 or something like that?
No, it was 70 to 80,000. Now,
Was
the
it?
benefit that we had there was that cost was reimbursed in part by a federal grant.
66%.
But just to offer, I always like to offer another option. Bonnie, the clerk's office, they do generally, we're very conservative. Bonnie has told you that she expects to take in additional revenue. You could use the additional revenue to do some additional scanning.
We can be
And she does
creative.
need the space.
If we're not looking at cutting the budget, and we're looking at how do we provide better services within the organization, then we should be looking at using that increase in fees to be able to do the document imaging. And don't look at this budget as one of those that we're going to have to cut. Other questions? Thank you, Bonnie.
Thanks, guys.
Bonnie?
And by the way, thank you for bringing all your clerks up to our meetings, and we appreciate all the work that they're
They
doing.
love being here.
Yeah, well, we just increased the stress level, right? No, we're reducing it by you being up here. So, this, next is the administration. Dave?
Hi, Dave Benda, County Administrator. Here to talk about the administration office. All of you are pretty familiar with it because you come into our office, and we pretty much provide a lot of information and assistance to the Board of Commissioners in their job. We have a 2014 budget of $299,000, roughly, which is about 2.5% less than the 2013 budget, and we're kind of one of those examples that you can't really look at last year and compare it to this year and make any sense out of anything, because we got about $40,000, almost $41,000 in legacy costs that were added this year by reallocation of legacy costs. We had quite a few retirees out of our office a number of years ago, so we're paying for the legacy costs and those weren't reflected in the 2013 budget. The reason we've got a lower budget this year than last year, even with that $40,000 increase, is that we moved our half of our secretary into the internal service fund, and she's going to be charged back to all county departments. And our secretary is one of the 4 positions in my office. One of them is under the Board of Commissioners budget, which is Chris Kramer. The secretary is Sarah Adams, and she is doing a lot of things that she didn't do when I first arrived. She's helping the IT department because they don't have the staff to develop our website, so she's taken on, and very adeptly I might add, a website committee and is steering the improvement of our website one department at a time. Through a process that I put together in a different county, and it worked really well, and she's picked it up here and is really running it way better than it was run in my previous county. So at any rate, she's doing that, and she does the copier, she does the mail room, she does the contracts and central purchasing things, all the state contract things. If somebody needs something under the state contract, Sarah's the one that they go to. She handles a lot of different things in our department. And she's also, as Don mentioned, she's one of those people that's job has completely changed, and she's still a secretary. And I have an office manager as well. The office manager is my administrative assistant, takes care of my calendar, and but I work a little differently than my predecessor did, and this office is really organized the way my predecessor's needs were put together. And I'm trying to use her for as much as possible, and I think she's kind of underutilized because I type my own letters. I do a lot of things on my own, and the kind of skills that I need are more management skills, deputy administrator type skills. Because I have about 18 direct reports, not including all these other extraneous county, contractual things that we have with other local units of government and with other quasi-governmental agencies. I mean, I'm the guy that all those people come to, for example, the Conservation District or, our various commissions and so forth. So we handle a lot of work, plus we're handling the Boardman Dams project.
It's huge.
Yeah, which is huge. I was telling my department heads the other day, I just need one more damn meeting. And so anyway, so I guess if I had to look at changing my department, that's the way I would do it. I would probably change out my office manager for something that was more like a deputy administrator. Funds are not available for that. I even asked, how much that would cost, because you used to have a deputy administrator, but that'd be about a $35,000 increase in the budget, and we just don't have it. So we're making do with what we've got. The county administrator provides pretty much leadership for the organization and direction to department heads, works with elected officials and judges. We get policy direction from the Board of Commissioners and implement those policies and make sure they're carried out, make sure they're followed, take action when they're not. Do a lot of things with Jen and Human Resources. We negotiate contracts, come up with all kinds of labor direction, basically. We provide the board with information and advice. We prepare operating and capital budgets. We provide financial guidance for our long-term stability, for our long-term financial stability. And we function as the liaison between all the department heads and elected officials and the Board of Commissioners. So at any rate, our customers are obviously the taxpayers, foremost, the Board of Commissioners, who we work directly with, our department heads, elected officials, and county offices, some boards and commissions, county employees, and other governmental units and community groups. How many are served? Well, we serve the entire county, but we are really an internal service department by definition, and we are staffed to the Board of Commissioners, and we serve all the county residents. We take calls from the residents, and we follow up on those calls. Why are they important? They are all important. We have a lot of legal requirements that are placed on the county, more and more every day, actually. We have to keep track of those things and make sure that we're carrying those things out properly. And somebody's got to carry out the business functions of county government. You've chosen an administrator form of government. There are some counties that are still functioning without administrators. I just really don't know how, but they're usually pretty small counties. Yeah. And they rely on the bigger counties to give them direction, and they got to keep they got to keep asking us questions through this advanced technology of listservs and emails to keep up on what's going on. We don't generate any kind of revenue other than indirect cost allocations to various departments. We bring in about, I think, $115,000 to cover our costs. We could provide, this could be provided another way. It's just someone else would have to do the work. I mean, that's all there is to it. There's a lot of work in at my office, and somebody's got to do it. You can start distributing to someone else, and they'll have to give up one thing or another to pick up the stuff that we give up. So, it's really difficult to outsource these services. Sometimes it makes sense to do that. The televising of board meetings, was outsourced, and that was before my time, but that would be probably something the county administrator would have to decide at the time that Dennis Aloya was here, whether we have a staff person inside the booth or we contract with Leah to do that. There's a number of other things that we always look at, whether all through the county when people are asking for, ways to address new things or to continue to address things that are changing, whether we can use outsource our services or not. How would we implement a general fund budget reduction, and what impact would that have on our services? The office was organized by my predecessor and it met his needs. I have less need for secretarial assistance, and I think that, if I had to do something, I would probably reduce the classification of my office manager and use her for lower level functions. But that would, because keeping my calendar and, a number of things that she's doing could be done by a lower level classification. I wouldn't want to do that, certainly right now. And I could also eliminate, some travel and professional development costs in my department. There's only about $10,000 there that it's not either salary or, kind of IT and telephone and those kind of costs that you really can't reduce unless you start cutting staff. None of our office is really mandated, but all those functions still have to be done internally by someone, and so it's an internal service. There's kind of three ways you divide up county services. One is mandated, internal services, and then discretionary. And if a discretionary service is, if you cut it, it goes away and you don't have to provide it, and no one's going to tell you have to. We don't have that. We actually do things that someone is going to have to do. So that's about all I have.
Okay.
Get you out of here early, I hope.
Questions, Larry?
Well, for some of us that have been here for a while, we know that back when I started 20-some years ago with Ross Childs, he had Deputy County Administrator Mac McClellan for years and relied on Mac McClellan to help with a number of administrative projects that the board wanted completed. And that was of great assistance. And when the budget started crunching down, when Ross retired, the Board of Commissioners decided, actually, when Dennis Aloya came in, he made the decision that he's going to do what Dave's doing. He's going to take more stuff home, work on it on the weekends, take on more responsibility, and get the job done, and get the job done professionally and of high quality. So we've been functioning all along, growth in the county, and Dennis, as you know, took on another offer, which greatly enhanced his salary and his retirement benefit in the same size of a county as Grand Traverse out west. And I guess my feeling is that knowing the activity level in all the different kinds of businesses that the county runs, if you take a look at each department and all the different kinds of businesses, it's actually a separate business entity, and we have to hire a professional that understands all those different kinds of businesses and put them all together. and along with our finance manager and our human resource director, they have to make it all happen. And so I know from day one, we tried to talk Dennis into a deputy county administrator, and he just felt that he had to take a leadership role in terms of, showing that he can do more with less FTE. And be honest with you, he worked weekends and he took stuff home and got stuff done. And I was always amazed that he got it here on time, and it was a very professional product. And we always could rely on him, and we could sleep at night knowing he was managing and controlling it. In my personal opinion, I think we have the same benefit in Dave Bennett. He's got the same length of experience as Dennis Aloya, has the same abilities. And that's why the board chose him to be the next county administrator. And so I know that the responsibility levels and the workload has not changed. It's probably gotten greater with the enhancement of all the issues that have been surrounded with the dams project and some other things that he probably didn't expect when he got hired, like 13 different bargaining contracts and all those kinds of things. So I personally feel you can't knock that department down anymore, but what I would like to see is when Dennis had Katie Loran, who was the administrative assistant for the administrator, and Kay Rothschilds had Gene Dorenzi. And what both administrators did is they worked with their assistant administrator, not a deputy administrator, but an assistant administrator, within that department to gradually have them take on more responsibility to free up you on the major stuff. My style, my personality is, I hate doing that when I was in the banking business, because I felt if I got it done, I got it done right at my time and the way I wanted it done, so I did it myself. And I took everything home, just like Dennis. But we have to grow. We have to understand we're going to continue to grow, in population, and the job is going to always become more challenging because of that increased population base expected to come in over the next 10 years. So the only suggestion I would make at this time is that if you feel that the capability of the person that's the office manager can take on the smaller tasks, and you could take more of the larger tasks and free up your time, because the last thing I want to see as a county commissioner is having us burn you out with the amount of responsibility and the product level you have to perform, along with the other department heads, because I can't lay it all on you either. I can lay it on them. So I can't see dropping the FTE level lower, but I could see you possibly enhancing the responsibilities of the office manager to free you up on a lot. If you look at our strategic plan, you're going to need some time to help us accomplish that. And that's what part of your responsibilities are. Not only the day-to-day stuff of everything hitting you that you don't know what's coming in on a daily basis. You just don't know. Every day is a new world when you walk into the county building, because you run so many businesses and so many things can happen in a moment's notice, and you've got to attend to those. But if you feel confident that you can transition some of those responsibilities over, then that would make me feel better about freeing you up on some of the major things on the initiatives that the Board of Commissioners want to see as a part of their strategic plan.
I think I got it.
Other questions? Dan?
That does concern me. I know that you are overloaded. How are you doing? Is it, we hear about...
You can only do so much, I mean...
Yeah.
I can't go out to township meetings all the time. I can't make a lot of daytime meetings that people. There's a ton of meetings out there that are going out in our community that I'd love to attend, but I just don't have time to do that. And there are a bunch of other things that, if I had somebody working on Municast right now, I wouldn't have to go home, on the weekend and figure that all out and try and plug in what-if scenarios and all that. I mean, I just don't have anybody to do this work, so.
But you're,
And during my day, I don't have time to do that kind of work, so I have to do that stuff at night and on weekends, and,
when we talk about county morale.
That's okay,
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I mean, Larry just talked about the businesses that we run and how every day you get bombarded with new things, and somebody says, somebody new comes into your office and goes, well, guess what happened on this front you thought was quiet and now it's just about to flare up again. That's what makes it a great job. That's what makes it a really wonderful job. I mean, it's something different every day, and it's something challenging every day. It's great. But, you can only do so much. So we do what we can.
We've added approximately 6 hours a week to his workload by all these meetings. So, that's just the ricochet of, between Dean and the clerks and the personnel, each one of them are additional 6 hours a week. In that vein, I'm wondering if this isn't a good time to talk about trying to put together a list of these organizations and how they've come through and some of the suggestions that they have made that we might want to look at. When we get done listening to all these presentations, having that list compiled, and then we can maybe rank them as to where we feel would be the most important and the least important. So, trying to put that kind of a list together, if that's possible, Dave?
Sure.
Like the clerk's office. Hey, I can do this if you let me do this. Dave's office with administration, if you do this, I can do this. Start putting these together and ranking them. When we get done, then we can rank them and determine, maybe this isn't a cutting opportunity, maybe this is a reallocating of our resources to become more efficient.
Sounds good.
So we might want to do that.
I do have one question, though. On Sarah's salary, we switched her from your payroll to a different funding source.
Right.
That really didn't save the county any money. That just moved it from one spot to another, no?
That's true, but it also allows for her funds to be allocated to departments that weren't paying for her services before. So she's not so much working for me anymore. When she does the mailroom, she's not doing it for me. She's doing it for the entire county. When she's doing the copiers, she's not doing it for me, she's doing it for the entire county. When she's doing contracts, when she's doing purchasing, all those jobs that she has are really not, she's not doing my calendar, she's not doing my letters, she's not doing anything secretarial for me.
I see.
All of her work has been shifted to productive things that are county-wide. So I thought it was a smart idea to move it over there. That way we can get reimbursed for a piece of a health department grant or a piece of the friend of the court grant or through the indirect cost
So it's kind
allocation.
of like what Herb is saying, it's just better use of our resources.
And it allows for a percentage of her cost that was charged 100% to the general fund to be charged some percentage through the cost allocation plan to other funds,
Okay, thank you.
other revenue sources.
Charlie?
Dave, going into this 15 labor contracts, how much time are you going to spend this year getting ready for that?
Good question.
Well, that's a good question, and if you look at how complex that budget is, the allocation of health insurance and the allocation of retirement and legacy costs, plus the allocation of IT costs, all those things they take a lot of time. And Dean does a great job of doing that. We throw curveballs at him near the in the middle of the process and say we got to get this done in a week, and Dean gets a little balder.
And he's still got the year end to be able to finish out, so, yeah.
Yeah, I can say that.
Yeah.
So-
Any other questions? Go ahead,
I guess
John.
I was getting to, if we're going to have a major contract negotiation in 15, everything's coming together. You have to prepare for that.
Yes.
Going through this year.
I mean, we've done,
Seems
certainly
like
we've.
a lot of time will be spent on that. Is it not time to look at some outside help to look at these labor contracts?
Well, when you say outside help,
Advocate.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, Jen Seaman has the trust of our employee union, employee groups. And, what we are doing is pretty transparent. We're not hiding anything. We're basically saying we need, we said it with this last group, we need these concessions in health insurance to get to break even. And we need some other things to help us with our budget problem. And we kind of explained why we needed these concessions, and they agreed to them. And we have to do the same process with the next group of union negotiations that we have to go through. And we also have to address the ones we just did, because we only did one-year contracts.
That's my point. It's all coming together at one time.
It depends on what the boards, what the finances look like when we get our actuarial report June 30th or sooner. It depends on what our health insurance looks like, which we won't get until usually August or first part of September.
Your equalization study in April.
Equalization report in April, at the end of April, telling us what our new construction number is for taxes. We don't anticipate that our existing homes will go up by, more than inflation for sure, because they can't. But the new construction has been pretty significant, and we might see a bump in our tax revenue. So all that will tell us how hard we got to work to get this whole thing balanced in 2015.
Well, my issue is that we adopt this 2014 budget. You get some concessions. We're still in deficit. We're going to go in next year. You're still in imbalance. We're going to give another pay raise next year. We know we are right now for this insurance or whatever it's going to be. We're not representing the public. I know Jen does great with who we have here. The public's looking at this. You give a raise, but you have a deficit.
I think we didn't give a raise last year. We cut $1 million out of employees in this last set of negotiations. So to say that we gave a raise, yes, we did give a 1.5% pay raise, and we took away over $1 million. Not only did we cut enough to cover that 1.5%, but we cut $1 million more than that.
Okay.
So that's, this board and our employees work together to do a good thing for our taxpayers. So if anybody wants to represent this as we gave raises, we gave a bunch of money away, we spent we fiddled while Rome burned, that's a mischaracterization of what happened.
I don't think that was what I was trying to say.
Well,
I'm telling you the perception on the outside.
Oh, I
is
understand.
different. Now, what we've done is we give raises, but then your recommended budget, or a way around that, was to have personnel cuts.
They had to pay more for their health insurance.
Because that's where we're at, this sort of thing. Now, we have some people that are under contract for 14. Their insurance costs about 22% more than the plan the rest of us adopted. How are you going to go into those folks next year, if you did what you did this year, and not compensate them for what they're going to pay for more insurance that will then go all around the county again?
Well, I'm not going to do it. You're going to do it. And we're going to have to go into closed session prior to negotiations and talk about what our strategy will be for the next round.
I think we need to not be into that discussion at this
I'm
point.
not saying we're not into it. I'm saying it's a place we could possibly save this man some time.
Well,
That's what I'm saying.
he's not asking for it at this point. So
I hear
if you-
people saying we needed an assistant administrator, for God's sake.
Yeah, well, but that's where we're going to have to prioritize when we get done with our reviews.
Well, I think we
And
better
that one
take a
we will
good
have those
look at
discussions.
some outside help for this next negotiation, and that's where I stand on it. And a
But that's
lot of
what-
people in the public feel exactly the same way.
So,
We're negotiating with ourselves internally.
anyway, Larry, you got one minute.
Yes, I understand your point. No, I understand your point, Commissioner Rennie. And we had that model for a long time with, when Dennis Aloy came on, and previously with Rothschilds. We had outside counsel that had an expertise in labor negotiations and stuff. And not to say it was a great idea, we found ourselves in a position of non-trust with the unions for some reason. And they were protracted negotiations that ended up not being settled, that went to the, arbitration or mediation or whatever you want to call them. And we ended up paying the check that they demanded in the long run, because you have one person that decided that, yeah, they deserved it and you had the capacity to pay. We also, at that time, paid out, I think, in legal fees, I'm throwing out a number of about $140,000 to have that person help us with labor negotiations. So, in some respects, yeah, a labor negotiating attorney could help us free up his time and does have expertise about what's going on around the state.
Larry,
But
we're getting off.
I know, I just want to make the point that, there's some pros and cons to bringing someone
Right,
in.
There is.
But
But
you
we
know
should
what?
have that discussion, not at this meeting, but at one of our future meetings.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to
All
get
right.
to.
Yeah.
Okay.
On the list.
It's on the list.
Yeah.
Okay,
what I wanted to
at this point, I just want to clarify our calendar for next week. I guess we have facilities management, county facilities, capital improvement fund, the conservation. I'd like to see that change from soil conservation to the conservation district. They're no longer the soil conservation district. Also, then Thursday, we have county parks. We have a joint meeting with county parks. And then Friday, we come back from, I'm not sure what's on the calendar on that, because it's been changed.
What time is the meeting with County Parks?
6,
6, okay.
Do you
okay?
want to know what it is? She sent a bulletin out on that.
So I've not seen the current calendar here for some reason. I don't have
Let me see.
that. I have January's, but I don't have February's.
See if I have
Is there any public comment? Don't see any public comment. Any other discussion for the commissioners? If not, we are adjourned.
Thank you.